Alcohol and Good Decision by Orphaned Account on AO3. Episode 5. Chapter 5. The Storm. It took a few moments for Hisashi to register the screaming. His hearing aids were ringing in his ear after being so close to the explosion, staticky and screeching at him. Quickly, he turned them off, even as he moved to crane his neck down at Izuku. Izuku who, even though Hisashi could no longer hear him, was screaming his little head off. Tears were running down the child's splotchy cheeks like waterfalls, his mouth open and throat tensing as he wailed. It struck something deep in Hisashi's chest, seeing Izuku scream like that. Hisashi tried to shush the child, trying to comfort him, but Izuku kept screaming. And then, Hisashi could see the child's lips moving as he sobbed out, "Daddy!" Fuck. Hisashi cursed, pressing Izuku's face to his shoulder. Because what the fuck was he supposed to do in this situation? He couldn't call the police at present, and Izuku was in no condition to do so either, even with an adult's instructions. And yet he couldn't go charging into the half-standing bank when he was currently in charge of Izuku. Why had Shouta put him in charge of Izuku? Why him? Sure, he'd been the only adult around at the moment, but Shouta could just run Izuku back into the bakery. It was hardly a block behind them. But then again, he needed all the time he could have in order to get those hostages out, but Hisashi? Really? Sure, he was good with kids. He had a plethora of nieces and nephews, not to forget Tensei's little brother, but Hisashi wasn't even Shota's friend. Not yet. And somehow, Shouta still found it in him to trust Hisashi. But now, a hand suddenly grabbed Hisashi's shoulders, and he swung around with a fist raised. Izuku pressed to his side as he got ready to swing. There stood Tanaka, hands up in a surrendering pose. He said something, but Hisashi's brain was spinning too badly to be able to read lips. Tanaka frowned, and Hisashi vaguely gestured to his hearing aids, eyes lighting up in recognition. Tanaka signed. "Do you sign?" "Yeah," Hisashi replied with a short nod and a brisk motion. "Give Izuku to me." Tanaka responded. "Aizawa needs you." In a normal situation, where his brain was functioning, Hisashi may have questioned how Tanaka knew he was a pro hero. After all, Hisashi knew he was nearly unrecognizable out of uniform. Izuku was special to have recognized him like that. But this wasn't a normal situation, and Hisashi's brain was spinning like a broken record, so he handed Izuku over, wincing when the child's foot kicked out and hit his kidney. "I'll be back," Hisashi promised out loud and in sign. "Bring Aizawa with you." Tanaka signed back, holding Izuku tightly to his chest. "Please." Inasashi's brain may have been spinning, but his heroic muscle memory knew exactly what to do. Without a second glance at the child in Tanaka's arms, he was safe with the baker. He was safe. Hisashi sprinted across the street towards the bank. He briefly noted seeing the flashing red and blue lights of cop cars nearby, but ignored them in favor of approaching the standing part of the bank. The front door had been rendered useless, and only the front left corner of the building remained standing. The blast had been large enough to take chunks out of the building on the right of it, but not strong enough to do other damage to the surrounding streets. Hisashi ducked under the hanging support beams, pulling himself under the wreckage of the bank. He looked around, noting all the debris that covered the floor. While the right wall of the bank was still half standing, the entirety of the roof had fallen inwards, leaving drywall and brick and skeleton work on the building on the ground. Hisashi sidestepped the worst of it, keeping his eyes open for the villains who had attacked the bank in the first place. It wouldn't help Shouta if he got himself in a bad spot, now would it? And Hisashi found them. Two of them, both armed to teeth. both having guns and knives, haven't helped them when their own bomb went off. It had likely been a last ditch attempt to get either away or die and stay out of prison. If it had been an attempt to get away, though, it had backfired horribly because both villains were absolutely blown to smithereens, blood and viscera coating the bricks around them. Hisashi gagged at the scent of iron, looking away from the cropped up bodies and back out to the rest of the wreckage. If they looked like that, then Shouta. No, he couldn't think like that because Shouta was too important. He had friends, and he had a son, Izuku. Little Izuku, who was likely outside still screaming his tiny little head off. And Shouta was too damn important to die. Hisashi was so stressed with his inner thoughts that he almost missed it. Really, it was a miracle he noticed it without his hearing aids on, but his eyes caught sight of a flash of black amongst the pale gray smoke and dust. A black shoe, followed by a black sock, and black pant legs. Shouta! Hisashi shouted, rushing towards the fallen hero. He couldn't hear a response, but that didn't mean anything. Shouta could have been screaming right back, although somehow Hisashi doubted the man was much of a screamer. There was a large chunk of ceiling covering up Shota's top half, and Hisashi mustered up all his strength, heaving with every muscle in his body, shoving it out of the way. Lying there beneath the rubble was a deadly still Shouta. Fuck, Hisashi hissed. Fuck, 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 fuck. He scrambled for a pulse, collapsing to his knees beside the other man as he reached for Shota's neck. For a few moments, Hisashi felt nothing. A sob built up his chest, and then bump, bump, bump. Oh, thank fuck. Shota's eyes were closed, his head tilted to the side, his chest rose and fell to the pulse of his heartbeat. For a moment, Hisashi allowed himself to close his eyes and sigh in relief. And then his eyes snapped open with force. Because Hisashi Yamada was a hero, and he had a job to do. Leading the paramedics over to Shouta was easy enough, and sitting back to let them work was even easier. The hardest part was going back to Izuku and Tamaka. Hisashi left a quick statement with one of the officers there, a new guy named Sanasa, with the coolest mutation quirk, who also happened to know JSL rather well, to Hisashi's utter relief, and rushed back over to Izuku and Tanaka. Izuku had finally worn himself out with the screaming, but was still sobbing into Tanaka's shirt. Water eyes and snot bubbles greeted Hisashi when he went to rub Izuku's back, and the child jumped from Tanaka's arms to his with absolutely no prompting. Hisashi wasn't upset about it, though. Far from it. He could use a good Izuku hug right about now. Hugging Izuku tightly to his chest, feeling the child's warmth, and shuddering sobs and heartbeat, Hisashi fished his cell phone out of his pocket and handed it to Tanaka. Call Emmy for me, please. Tell her what happened. Emmy, Tanaka confirmed, earning a nod, before he dialed. Hisashi could see the man mouth, "Hello, Miss Emmy?" before he turned his attention back down to Izuku. The child's eyes were lolling, and Hisashi was reminded that the boy was nearing nap time, right before everything went south. What with the emotional roller coaster and the trauma he's experienced that day, Izuku must have been exhausted. So muttering soft and rocking back and forth, Hisashi crooed to the little boy. Soft lullabies and nothings fell from his lips, his hand stroking through Izuku's sweat-damped curls. Slowly but surely, Izuku's heaving sobs turned to hiccups, and then quickly to snores. Tanaka had wandered off a few feet to speak on the phone, but wandered back quickly and signed to Hisashi. She said she's on her way. She'd be here in a few minutes. Looking over Hisashi's shoulders, Tanaka's eyes went wide. Is he okay? They've got him on a stretcher, but I don't know. Hisashi interrupted. All I know is he's alive. A sad smile flickered onto Tanaka's face, and he replied, "That's all that matters right now." Somehow, Hisashi wasn't so sure about that. It hardly took M 10 minutes to get to their location. Hisashi didn't know how she did it, especially since her agency was nearly 20 minutes away. But he didn't question it. Let Emmy keep her secrets. It gave him a bit of time to mess with his hearing aids while Izuku was sleeping in his arms. And he got them barely working enough to hear the woman's approach. "Zuku," the woman chirped when she saw the little boy bundled up in Hisashi's arms. Tanaka had retreated to his upstairs apartment at the bakery and had come back down with a ratty tan blanket, offering it up to Hisashi to wrap Izuku in. Then, with a wise smile, Tanaka had bid them adieu to deal with his panicking customers. "Zuku," Emmy repeated, her voice still happy and upbeat, even as Hisashi noticed the worry lines around her eyes. She was grinning, keeping up the facade for Izuku, but Hisashi could see it. She was worried. He was too, of course. But M was close with Shouta, possibly the closest he had. This had to have been taking a toll on her. Even so, she smiled at her little nephew and tickled his tummy, drawing a wet and tired giggle out of the sleepy boy. "Hey, sweetie pie," Emmy greeted for a third time. "Why don't we get you upstairs into a bath, yeah? And then we could get you a change of clothes and a nap?" But, Izuku started, tears welling up in his eyes. "But, Daddy." "Your daddy is in good hands, Zuko," Emmy crooned to the boy, brushing his bangs back and out of his face. "The doctors and nurses know what they're doing, okay, buddy? They'll take care of him." Izuku, sniffling, concealed to his aunt's points and relinquished his hold on Hisashi to be transferred over to her arms. Emmy crooned a bit more to Izuku, gently holding onto the back of his head as he burrowed his face into her neck. Turning to Hisashi, M grinned softer, weaker than before, and said, "You probably want a bath and nap too. Still got my number, Yamada?" Minutely, Hisashi noted. "Good. I'll keep you updated on Shouta, okay? For now, though, I think Izuku needs some family time." "Family time? Oh, of course." Hisashi has almost forgotten throughout the course of the day. He wasn't family. Of course he wasn't. Having a single night of fun with Shouta didn't entitle him to shit. And just because Shouta had been inclusive and kind for most of the day, didn't mean shit either. He was just a stranger to them. Just a colleague to M. Nothing to Shouta. Nothing to Izuku. Numbly, Hisashi nodded again. "Be good, Izuku," he croaked, turning on his heels and walking down the street, away from Shota's apartment. Sometime later, he hailed a cab. It was an astronomical fee to get him back to Masatafu, but he paid it without blinking, his hands shoved into his pockets, eyes downcast towards the ground. Hisashi made his way to his apartment, going up the elevator and unlocking the door. His apartment was quiet, silent, deadly silent. Not even Noodles was meowing, fast asleep, perched on top of his scratching post. He was alone. Hands and knees shaking, stomach churning, brain throbbing against his skull, Hisashi pulled out his cell phone and hit speed dial. "Hey," he stuttered once. They picked up. I I don't I can't be alone right now. I'm on my way." Namuri got to his apartment in mere minutes, letting herself in with her key, which was good because Hisashi was currently wrapped under no less than 3 blankets and a weighted comforter, snuggled into the fetal position upwards onto his couch. There was a TV playing in the background, some pre-corked cartoon, and both ceiling fans and humidifier were on the highest setting. There was enough background noise that Asashi, with or without his hearing aids in, would be successfully distracted. So, Nomori drawled, slightly teasing and slightly worried. You want to tell me what happened with Adonis, or... A sob ripped its way out of Hisashi's chest, startling his friend. Immediately, Nomori was crouched down next to the man, asking what he needed. Water? Something stronger? A hug? A hug would be nice. Hisashi murmured, blinking back the tears that would slowly swallowing up his vision. It wasn't even fair of him to be upset. After all, he wasn't familiar with the Aizawas. So why was he so... Nomori obligated him, of course, hugging the living daylights out of the man's, before turning to his kitchen. Nomori made a wonderful cup of tea with her loose-leaf cognation of her own apartment. But all Hisashi had at his place were bagged tea. Still, somehow, Nomori managed to whip together a honey-soaked cup of bliss for Hisashi to consume. You've probably got a headache, Nomori crooned to him, gesturing to his hearing aids. Take those off if you want. I'm getting rusty on my JSL anyways. Which was a total lie. If anyone was rusty on their JSL, it was Tensei. But Nomori was absolutely fluent, and had been that way for years. So, Nomori signed to him after setting their mugs of tea on the coffee table. She sprawled out on the couch next to Hisashi, forcing him to uncurl with her feet so that she could rest them on his lap. It was a simple touch, one that shouldn't have been as comforting as Hisashi found it. But he had always been a tactile person. Being touch-starved as a child really morphed him into a touchy-feely adult. And just feeling the warmth of his friend next to him had the knot in his chest loosening slightly. Something happened with Adonis? The woman continued. Yeah, Hisashi replied. His throat grew tight, and his shaking hands struggled to sign out. There was a villain attack. Nomori's eyes widened, and she leaned forward to empathically sign. Are you okay? I'm fine. Shouta. His name is Shouta. He got hurt. Start from the beginning, Hisashi. Nomori signed to him firmly. And so, he did. Hisashi told his friend everything, from the taxi ride to the park, to the dandelions, to playing heroes and villains with Izuku, to finding out Izuku was quirkless. He told her about Shota's small smile and the affection he held for his son. He told her about ice cream and chocolate croissants and small teasing smiles. He told her about a pink, an explosion, finding Shouta, and Izuku's tears. When Hisashi was done, he was struggling to breathe, feeling like he had sprinted 5 miles. Sometime during his tirade, Nomori had started running her hands through his long hair, trying to get some of the small knots out. You got attached, she told him. When Hisashi went to protest, Nomori continued on. There's nothing wrong with that. Not always. Sometimes getting attached can be a good thing. Sometimes the universe is on our side, and attachments can mean future blessings. I don't think the universe is on my side here, Nem, Hisashi retorted, feeling a little jaded. He's in the fucking hospital, Nem. And I didn't do a single fucking thing to help him. But you did help him, Sashi. I could have done more. Could've, would've, should've. Nomori flicked her hand in the air haphazardly. We all have regrets, Hisashi. But don't let allowing Shouta and Izuku to slip through your fingers by some misplaced sense of guilt become a regret. Because you've gotten attached, and you will regret letting them go. Hisashi inhaled, and the spinning in his head steadied itself, some with some deep breaths he let out. How do you know me so well? Because I'm the best. Make sure you tell Tensei. Snorting out a laugh, Hisashi shook his head. Sorry, but I don't have favorite friends. Yes, you do, you liar. Don't have favorite students. Don't have favorite friends. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I'm revoking your kitten privileges. Hisashi gasped, hands flying to his chest, as he leveled a shocked expression at the woman. You wouldn't. Smirking, sitting up straighter, Namori taunted. Oh, yeah? You're no longer allowed to cat sit lady. Only Tensei now. Tensei's allergic to her. He could learn to deal. He thinks cats are all demons. They are. Cute, fluffy little demons. After a beat of silence, the two friends burst into laughter, leaning against one another as they cried happy tears. A few minutes later, once Hisashi has calmed down and caught his breath, he turned back to Namori. What would I do without you? Crash and burn, a fiery death. The woman replied, shortly, with no remorse. Harsh, but true. So, did you get his number? Hisashi deadpanned. Nem, I doubt he'll be texting from the hospital. Damn, you're right. And then, it hit Hisashi. He may not be able to contact Shouta. But he did have a certain jokester's phone number. But I think I know a way to fix that. His daddy was sleeping. Auntie Joke had said that daddy was hurt really, really bad, and that he needed a lot of sleep to get better. But Izuku didn't want his dad to sleep. He looked so uncomfortable on the little bed that the nurses and doctors put him on. He was covered in bandages and had a thick cast on his leg. When Izuku had reached for the blankets to pull himself up onto the bed, right before his Auntie Joke had pulled him onto her lap and cooed him to sit with her, he felt how scratchy the blankets were. His daddy couldn't be comfortable laying on them. His daddy had really, really, really soft blankets at home, and he had a blanket that was really heavy. Izuku liked to crawl under it to scare his daddy when he came out of the bathroom. He didn't think his daddy was ever really scared, but he always got a little smile on his face and ruffled Izuku's hair. Why won't daddy wake up? Izuku sniffled, feeling overwhelmed. So much had happened that day already, and it was only nap time. He met Present Mike. Present Mike from Put Your Hands Up Radio that he and his daddy listened to all the time. And they'd gone to the park, they went and saw Mr. Tamaka-san, and they'd been heading home to nap when... It's nap time, Zuko. Auntie Joke told him, rocking him back and forth and running her fingers through his hair. Taking nap, baby. Maybe your daddy will be awake when you wake up. It'll be like a little present, getting to talk to him. Yeah? Daddy's not comfortable. Izuku protested. And Spork isn't here. Daddy cuddles with Spork when he naps. And Daddy doesn't have his sleeping bag. Or his blankets. Or Izuku began to stutter, breath hitching and tears welling up in his eyes. Auntie Joke, he needs... Zuko, baby, you need to breathe, okay? Take a deep breath, kiddo. Your daddy's going to be fine, okay? But it was too much. Everything was too much. The lights in the hospital were too bright, and the explosions and the sirens had been too loud, and President Mike had saved his daddy, but now President Mike wasn't here. So his daddy wasn't safe because President Mike wasn't there to save him if something else happened. Izuku, breathe, kiddo. Breathe. Nurse? Nurse, I need a nurse! Auntie Joke had set him down on the bed next to his daddy, and she had stuck her head into the hallway to scream. Izuku's chest still hitched painfully, black spots approaching in his eyes. Turned sideways to curl into his daddy's hand, he grabbed his hand with both of his own, tugging it to his chest tightly. The spots in his eyes got bigger and bigger, and there were hands on his shoulders tugging him away from his daddy. And then Izuku fell asleep. My throat hurts! And it's not because it's a 25-minute video. It is because it is a... Sorry. I leaned back in my chair and it leaned back a little too much. It, like, lifted up a little, so I got a little scared. Anyways, my throat hurts because it's, like, a very sad episode. I'm glad it, like, the storm wasn't, like, them breaking up or some shit, even though they're not fucking together. The next episode is the last episode. Wow. Wow. We really went through that so fast. That shit was... We spad ran that. We speed run that. We speed ran? Speed run? Speed ran? I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyways, the next one, I know it's gonna be a Hot Wings ship. So, looking forward to that. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.